General Assembly. There is one more person I would especially like to acknowledge this day. She is here as she has been at my side every day for 23 years. She is my best friend. She is my partner in life and the finest mother any family could want. And she is Judge Katie Curran O'Malley. My fellow Marylanders, over the course of these 7 years, you and I have carried with us a commitment. It is a commitment to a better future, the better future our children deserve. A commitment founded on the belief we share in the dignity of every individual. A commitment strengthened by the belief we share in our own responsibility to advance the common good. And a commitment sanctified by the belief we hold that we are all in this together, and each of us is needed in God's eyes. I have seen this commitment myself in the eyes of our teachers, firefighters, and police officers, in the eyes of our veterans and their brave, brave families, in the quiet fortitude of hardworking moms and dads throughout our state. It is a commitment that has been shared by each of you who have the privilege to represent the citizens of Maryland in this historic place. I remember well the first time I set foot in this building as a young boy with my father. He was a lawyer, and he had a case here in Annapolis at the Court of Appeals. And he took me by my hand as we climbed the steps of this revolutionary building. And he brought my brother and me right down the hall to the room where General Washington gave his authority over the army back to the elected representatives of the people. And in that doorway, he leaned down to me and he explained to me the significance of this very House chamber. The duties of the men and the women we elect to serve here. I was awed by the fact that this is a place where we have come together as a people for over 200 years to make a better life, to make this place, our place, a better place. It has been a tremendous and humbling honor to have been able to serve the people of our state through difficult and important days with each and every one of you, all of us, together. On this occasion, we take time to reflect on the way we have traveled and where we have come. Through the longest wars in American history and the greatest recession since the Great Depression, our goals as an administration have remained constant and true: to strengthen and grow the ranks of our middle class, including our family-owned businesses and our family farms, to improve public safety and public education, and to expand opportunity to more people rather than fewer, the opportunity to learn and to earn, the opportunity to enjoy our own health and the health of the people we love, and the health of this land we love, the Chesapeake, the Patuxent, the mountains of Western Maryland, and the marshes of the Eastern Shore. Today, because of the hard work and courage of our people, I can report to you that the state of our state is strong and is growing stronger by the day. In fact, not only is Maryland stronger than before, Maryland is cleaner, smarter, safer, healthier, more entrepreneurial, more competitive than she was before the recession hit. Think back. When we took office, Maryland had a $1.7 billion structural deficit. No sooner had we taken action together to address that deficit than the recession hit. Parents lost their jobs, children lost their homes, families struggled to hold on to their very dignity. Even as we fought to help every family we could and to save every home and every job we could, our state revenues took a huge hit, right along with so many family incomes. Since that time, the O'Malley-Brown administration has used the challenge of these times to make our government more efficient and more effective. We have cut spending by $9.1 billion. We have made more cuts than any administration in modern Maryland history. Today, we now have the smallest executive branch in our government that we've had since 1973. And the budget I presented to you last week puts us on a track to totally eliminate that structural deficit without the need for any new fees or taxes. We remain one of only 7 states that has maintained a AAA bond rating all through this recession and to this day. We have built up our rainy day fund now to $800 million, and we have placed this year in our general reserve an operating surplus of $37 million. But cuts are only part of our story. No state ever cut its way to prosperity. Growth requires investment. Together, we've made those critical investments. Investments to educate, to innovate, to rebuild, to grow jobs and create more economic opportunity. This is what a balanced approach is all about. 7 years ago, we were failing to live up in many cases to our state's full potential. 7 years later, we are not just one Maryland. In many cases, we are now number one Maryland. Just listen. Listen with me for a quiet moment here. Maryland today is number one in our students' AP successes for 7 years in a row, number one in education 5 years in a row, number one in holding down the cost of college tuition, number one in innovation and entrepreneurship for 2 years in a row, according to the United States Chamber of Commerce, number one in PhD scientists and researchers, number one in businesses owned by women, and number one in median household income. This is what the people of our state have achieved, and together we can applaud their accomplishment. Now, 7 years ago, in response to the desires of our people, we set out in this O'Malley-Brown administration to govern in a fundamentally different way. Setting goals, measuring performance, hitting deadlines, getting results, making progress visible for you to see and for me to see. Every day, the test of any policy, any action, any expenditure has been whether or not it's actually working to produce the intended results. In the past, our states, and indeed our country, have been governed by a top-down approach, haven't they? Hierarchical, bureaucratic, shouting orders from somewhere above. But that's not the world we live in anymore. This generation is not about command and control. This generation seeks good ideas on level ground, everywhere. It is fundamentally entrepreneurial, operationally collaborative. It is performance measured, connected, and relentlessly interactive. It is the new way. This generation wants its government to be accountable for its actions and accountable for the results that we seek. Today in Maryland, you can go online right now and see 16 strategic goals that we've set for our state's progress. in the areas of job creation, education, security, sustainability, and health. On some of these, we've already exceeded our initial goal. On others, we are making progress, and on a few, we have a longer way to go. Progress requires accountability, but accountability also means putting your commitment out there for all of us to know and see, and hopefully to help drive. The people are in charge. One example, in 2007, one of the goals we publicly set was to actually drive down our infant mortality rate by 10% by 2012. Now, there were a lot of people, well-intended, who counseled me not to make it public. You see, the old way of thinking says that elected officials should never set measurable results with deadlines because you'll be criticized if you fall short. We chose a different path. We set real goals with specific and more immediate deadlines. We publish delivery plans. We call upon the public to not only hold us accountable, but also, hopefully, to help us achieve these results that we are seeking together, these goals. And we use the pressure of that public awareness to drive for maximum results. By the way, at the end of 2012, together, we had driven down Maryland's infant mortality rate, not just by 10%, but by 21%. In more real terms, that's 164 lives saved. Of course, as you might have guessed, the reward for hitting or exceeding your goal is to set an even higher goal. And so we have, in order to save more lives. And we are in it together. Goals, deadlines, performance measures, doing what works and doing what serves. This is how continuous progress is made. And this is also how we create jobs. Get this. We are one of only 17 states now that has recovered all of the jobs we lost in the national recession. One more fact. And since the lowest point of the recession, we have now achieved the fastest rate of new job growth of any state in our region. This is how we improve public education. This is how we drive degree attainment. This is how we improve public safety. Today, with courageous law enforcement officers, we have now reduced violent crime to 30-year lows. Think about it. With our first responders, shock trauma doctors and nurses, traffic deaths have been reduced now to their lowest levels in decades. We enacted common sense measures to reduce gun violence. We repealed the death penalty and replaced it with life without the possibility of parole, and there are now fewer people incarcerated in Maryland than at any time since 1994. Goals, deadlines, and performance measures. This is also how we're making our air and our waters cleaner. We've planted more trees on public lands in the last 7 years than ever before. We have added more renewable energy to the grid than any time since we built the Conowingo Dam 85 years ago. More farmers are now planting cover crops to reduce nutrient runoff than ever before. To protect our farmlands, our forests, and our open space, this year, Maryland passed the milestone of preserving 1 million acres for our children's future. And together, we have taken the strongest actions in decades to make the Chesapeake Bay cleaner and healthier. Strong actions that are restoring our menhaden, that are bringing back our oyster population and our blue crabs, and we are leading the states of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, cleaning up the bay, consistently meeting our 2-year action milestones. In other words, allowing less nitrogen and phosphorus to pollute our bay today than 7 years ago. Measurable progress by our hands in our time for the long-term restoration of the bay. This is also how we protect our most vulnerable young people. Together, we've reduced childhood hunger, and today, thanks to Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown's leadership and all of yours, more children receive health care in Maryland than ever before. We have reduced juvenile homicides by 44%. We have reduced the number of children placed in foster care and group homes by 42%. And along the way, we have come together time and again to protect the dignity of every Marylander. For the first time in 350 years, we have now officially recognized our brothers and our sisters of the native Piscataway people. And so that children of new American immigrants can realize their full potential, we passed the DREAM Act here in Maryland. And to protect the dignity of every child's home and ensure equal rights under the law for all Marylanders, we passed marriage equality. But for all of our achievements, being accountable also means acknowledging when we have fallen short. The healthcare website failed to perform as designed when it was launched, a source of great frustration, especially for those Marylanders who are looking forward to obtaining health care for the very first time in their lives. My administration and I have not succeeded at every first try, but we have never, ever given up. We learn from both success and failure. Sometimes failure kicks the deepest spur. So we will continue to improve. We will continue to help those seeking health care, and we will continue to enroll as many Marylanders as possible by the March 31st deadline. But let's not lose sight of the larger goal. We have already now extended health care coverage since the beginning of this administration to 453,000 people. Many of them, as I said, were children who did not have coverage before. And now, thanks to President Obama and the Affordable Care Act, not a single person can be denied coverage because of a prior existing condition, and no one can be dropped by an insurance company when they become sick. And with the leadership of Lieutenant Governor Brown and Secretary Josh Sharfstein, and I must add the support of our congressional delegation, Senator Cardin and Senator Mikulski, Congressman Van Hollen, Congresswoman Edwards, earlier this month, we embarked on a new and better way to improve wellness and reduce overall health care costs. And let me talk about this for a second. You see, the old payment system for health care encouraged the volume of services instead of the wellness of our people. The more sickness, the more pay. It was a system that made it look as if even the hospitals need hospitals. But not anymore. This new approach will change our payment system to reward hospitals for actually keeping people well. It has been described by healthcare experts in the Washington Post as, quote, without any question, the boldest proposal in the United States in the last half century, close quotes. 10 of our 44 hospitals have already moved to this new payment system, partnering with nursing homes, public health agencies, primary care doctors, wellness professionals, and others to actually keep the communities they serve healthier and well. It works. It achieves results. It's a better way, and it will improve the wellness of our people. You see, for us here in Maryland, the question has never been about whether we move left or whether we move right. It's always about whether we move forward or whether we go back. As one Maryland, we choose to move forward. Because progress is a choice, isn't it? And we have important work to accomplish this year. With all of the strides we've made in education, this session, we have the ability to advance towards universal pre-K in Maryland. This session, we have the responsibility and the opportunity to improve our laws to better protect the victims of domestic violence. And we also have the chance, this session, to come together, forge consensus, and raise the minimum wage in Maryland. To strengthen and grow our middle class. To strengthen and grow our middle class. This has been the North Star of everything this O'Malley Brown administration has been about. Our fiscal discipline, our strategic investments, our different way of governing openly, transparently, setting goals in order to achieve results. Now, together in Maryland, we've invested dearly, even through a recession and the revenue hit. We've invested dearly to improve education. Why? Because it is the ladder to success. We're investing more than ever in our transportation infrastructure in order to get more of our people back to work. We raised the earned income tax credit. Why? In order to better reward hard work. We've maintained the highest goal for minority and women-owned business participation, and for the first time ever in the life of this administration, we actually exceeded it. We became the first state in the country to pass a living wage. We put in place for the first time a progressive income tax that actually lowered income taxes for 86% of Marylanders. Just last calendar year, we moved more people in a single year from welfare to work than we ever have before. And because of these actions, the Pew Foundation now ranks Maryland one of the top 3 states for upward economic mobility. But we, of course, are a part of a larger national economy, aren't we? And something is still very wrong. We've lost sight of how our economy works, when our economy is actually working. Prosperity doesn't trickle down from the top, and it never has. It's built from the middle out, and it's built from the middle up. Henry Ford understood that 100 years ago when he doubled the pay of all of his workers. Now, of course, the capitalists of his era thought that Henry'd gone a little crazy. But Henry Ford understood that America actually worked best, and our economy worked best, if workers could afford to buy the products they were making. In other words, in a properly functioning capitalist economy, a thriving middle class is not the consequence of growth and prosperity. It is the source of growth and prosperity. When every worker earns more money, every business has more customers. And by the way, every taxpayer is relieved from funding poverty programs for workers who are being paid poverty-level wages. We've all met the hardworking people who toil away, very often at not 1 but 2 jobs that pay minimum wage. Most often, they are women. Very often, they are moms who are trying to support a child or 2 on their own, leaning on everyone around them for daycare and support, working 16-hour days and yet falling further behind. This is not how our economy should work. No person who works full-time and plays by the rules should be forced to raise their family in poverty. not in our state. Should we be satisfied as a people, as a country, as a state, if our corporations are becoming ever more profitable, and yet so many of our people are unemployed? Can we really say that our economy is working if our stock market is booming, but middle-class earnings are declining? The economy we seek in Maryland is an economy with a human purpose, where the ranks of our middle class are growing so our economy itself can grow. And the only way we're going to grow our economy is to grow our middle class. The minimum wage in Maryland is no longer a wage that anyone can live on. Even though Maryland has the highest median income in the nation, 21 other states have now set a higher minimum wage than we have. We can do better. Raising the minimum wage to $10.10 is going to create more and better customers for Maryland businesses. And that is why raising the minimum wage is not only good for the hundreds of thousands of Marylanders who will see a boost in their paycheck, it is good for every Marylander because it is good for our entire economy. It's time to raise the minimum wage in Maryland. I believe in my heart that we are poised for a generation of greatness. I can see the day on our horizon when the achievements of our students lead not only the students of our nation, but lead the children of the world. I can see the day when all of our teachers actually have the technology they need in the classroom to provide personalized learning tailored to the unique abilities of every child. A day when every high school student in Maryland, upon graduating from high school, also has a modern technical skill and a year of college credit that has already been earned. I see Maryland's children enjoying the benefits of a state that wisely safeguards its waters and woodlands and open spaces for the 22nd century and beyond. A state that leads the green economy of the future, creating thousands of new jobs. I see a time fast approaching when our booming high-tech economy is fueled by the talent of an ever more highly skilled workforce. And yes, I see a rapidly growing middle class whose standard of living is rising, a growing and diverse middle class that has become the forerunner of a newer, better American economy. And I can see a year that is coming when not a single child in Maryland will die a violent death. This is the future that remains to be won, and it will be won. Conclusion. We are standing on the threshold of a new era of American progress. As our world becomes more complex, it's also becoming more personalized and better connected. And no state is better poised to succeed in this new era than Maryland. The future is where we look. The past is what we have learned from. The only things worth doing are the things that might possibly break your heart. For 230 years, we have helped lead our country forward into the future, especially through moments of great doubt and adversity. When others said it wasn't possible, that all was lost, or it could not be done, we stood our ground and we made it happen. From many, one. From one, many. It's time to do it again. Thank you.
Governor Martin O'Malley delivering an upbeat annual State of the State address. The governor said the state is poised for a new generation of greatness. He pointed to improving statistics in the economy, health, education, and the environment, and he called for an increase in the minimum wage. The Republican view of the state of our state now from Senator David Brinkley, the Senate Minority Leader.
Hello, I'm David Brinkley, the Senate Minority Leader, and I have the honor and the privilege to represent the citizens of the 4th Legislative District in Carroll and Frederick counties. The governor just delivered his final State of the State address, and as you heard, he's very proud of his accomplishments as he considers a run for President of the United States in 2 years. But there have been consequences to the policies established these past 8 years. Not all of those consequences are positive, and today I will address the reality of what Maryland's families and communities are facing. First, Governor O'Malley and Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown had hoped their crowning achievement would be Maryland's implementation of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. But instead, it is the model of governmental and bureaucratic malpractice. Additional information is coming out about the colossal failure of this initiative every day. We still do not know how many Maryland families have been harmed by this failure because they couldn't obtain the coverage or lost coverage they previously had. This weekend, we learned over 1,000 people had their Medicaid packets and identifying information mailed to the wrong address, a major violation of privacy rights. Maryland, with all of its resources and political support, was supposed to be the model for successful implementation of health reform. But instead, the O'Malley-Brown administration has let Maryland be the model for how not to do this. Lieutenant Governor Brown, at a Finance Committee hearing last week, and in his role as the head of the implementation work group, was given the opportunity to apologize to the people of Maryland, and he just couldn't let those words pass his lips. Even though I didn't vote for the health exchange 2 years ago, I do believe the public expects the government to fulfill its promise. It obviously didn't, and for that, and on behalf of the state, I apologize to the families harmed in this rollout. In December and again last week, I asked for an investigation by the Joint Legislative Policy Committee that can compel testimony and hire technical consultants to find out who knew what, when they knew it, and what we can do to ensure this doesn't happen again. Others have since joined my call, but to no avail. I find it odd, and I'm sure you do too, that this administration won't even respond to the inquiries of Representative John Delaney, a Democratic member of Congress. There are similar troubling consequences to the O'Malley-Brown administration's budget and tax policy over the past 8 years. The governor touts that he reduced spending by $9 billion. But the fact is this: his first budget he submitted to the legislature 8 years ago was over $29.5 billion. Last week, he submitted his final budget, and it is nearly $39.5 billion. Now, maybe it's my public school math, but that's an increase of nearly $10 billion, not a reduction as the governor claims. It is an increase of nearly 33% over their 2 terms. Lest Marylanders forget, tax money is your money. The governor's true legacy and what the lieutenant governor has to defend as he seeks the governorship are all the tax increases over their tenure. The Republicans, through alternative budget proposals, pleaded for tax relief for middle-class families. Instead, Marylanders got a 20% increase in the sales tax, a gas tax increase, and imposition of a sales tax on fuel sales, income tax increases, increased tolls, higher vehicle registrations, and the list goes on and on. Who can forget the new and unique to Maryland rain tax, which one economist jokingly said that since the days of Pharaoh, shoguns, emperors, kings, queens, and dictators, they've tried to discover a way to tax rain. But by God, we figured it out in Maryland. The Texas governor even commented that in Texas they pray for rain, but in Maryland we tax it. Over 40 tax and fee increases in all, principally on the backs of lower and middle income Marylanders. Why principally them? Because many of those with the means, and by that I mean money, can choose to leave for the greener pastures of lower taxes in Delaware, Virginia, Pennsylvania, the Carolinas, and Florida. Fortunately, and I give credit when it's due, there is recognition among legislative leaders that some Marylanders are leaving the state because of our high tax burden. Those leaders are now getting on board with estate tax reform, which Republicans and conservative Democrats have been advocating for years in recoupling Maryland's estate tax exclusion to mirror the federal government and every state south of us. Let's move on to jobs and the truth about jobs for Maryland families. Maryland is blessed and cursed by our proximity to and dependence on the federal government. We reap the benefits of the jobs for some Maryland residents, but we are also subject to the whim of the federal government if there's a shutdown or sequestration like we witnessed this past fall. Financial advisors remind their clients of the importance of diversifying their portfolio. Well, Maryland has to learn this lesson by not depending too much on federal largesse. True economic security rests in the private sector for income and, hopefully, wealth creation. Again, I'm not taking away from the benefits of having so many federal employees, but let's hope that the lesson of federal cutbacks is not lost on Maryland's future leaders. But the current economic policies in Annapolis are truly hostile to the private sector. Mom and pop retail establishments in Western Maryland, Southern Maryland, the Eastern Shore, and even the metropolitan areas of Baltimore, Prince George's, and Montgomery counties have all suffered under this administration. Your plumber comes from the private sector. Your heating, your air conditioning technician does too. Add to the list automobile retailer and service persons, construction, and even demolition. The list goes on and on and on. They are Maryland families, and the business owners are the risk takers who provide that bit of opportunity for their workers and their families. I hope these people are successful. We all should hope they're successful so they can hire more people who want to care for themselves and their families. That's who I'm talking about, and many of them are asking, why am I doing business here in Maryland? These harmful policies in Annapolis make it cheaper and easier to purchase products and services across state borders. Now, we're going to start the debate on a minimum wage increase. Another way to approach it is to acknowledge it's an entry-level wage. No one can, nor should they expect to remain at this minimum entry-level wage. But increasing its threshold will raise the lowest rung of the career entry ladder and allow fewer positions for summer, holiday, or entry-level workers. And don't forget the ripple effect. Hourly workers above that threshold will look for their increases too. Are we guaranteeing an income increase for the risk taker? No, we're not. We can't do that. But if I, as a business owner, have only so much to allocate to payroll and I wish to continue to stay open for business, two things are going to happen. Fewer people will be on payroll, and I will look longer and harder at accelerating automation for my operation, perhaps putting more less skilled workers out of work. Aren't we seeing that with self-checkout at grocery stores and retail outlets? Some people think that raising this wage is a good idea. I submit that if it is, then it should occur at the federal level so we don't again put Maryland employers at yet another disadvantage, either when hiring or bidding projects to other firms in nearby Virginia, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, or Delaware. This attitude toward business in Maryland is exemplified by our poor rankings for business. That is why over the past 8 years, we went from 13 to 3 Fortune 500 companies that call Maryland their home. That is a 77% decrease. Over the same period of time, Republicans have argued for a better business climate in Maryland. We have advocated for tax relief for hard-working Maryland families. We've also introduced alternative budgets with real reductions to Maryland's spending to make Maryland better for business and families. The governor and I agree on a major thing. Maryland is a great state. We are positioned to make tremendous strides with our universities. Our commitment to education is second to none, and opportunities in the biotech and cybersecurity lie in front of us. But a thriving private sector and the jobs it creates for Maryland families is our pathway to that future. To the next governor, whoever he or she may be, seize that opportunity to create great jobs for Maryland families. Lighten the load on Maryland employers and job creators. Let's create those opportunities for all of our children and grandchildren. Thank you for listening.
And that was Frederick County State Senator David Brinkley, the minority leader of the state Senate, delivering a Republican response to the State of the State address. Earlier, Governor Martin O'Malley delivered his 8th annual State of the State message, painting a bright picture of the future of Maryland and perhaps laying some groundwork for his next campaign. Now, for all of us here at MPT, I'm Jeff Salkin. Thanks for joining us today. Join us tomorrow at 7:30 for State Circle and a wrap-up of the week's events in Annapolis. Have a good day.
Tonight on MPT.
This week on Chesapeake Collectibles.
You might be shocked to know that it's gone up in value quite a bit since you've owned it.
This is a lighting instrument that I don't know that I've actually ever seen.